Guys, imagine waking up to whispers in the crypto world that something massive is brewing, the kind of shift where global powers and hidden alliances start aligning in ways that could rewrite the entire financial playbook, especially on a day like today, November 18th, 2025, when fresh ripples from high-level talks and unexpected funding injections are sending shockwaves through the market. You've got heavyweight players like Saudi Arabia pouring trillions into U.S. opportunities tied to figures who know a thing or two about strategic reserves, and all of it converging on assets built for speed and settlement. Yeah, I'm talking about that eye-popping news linking Trump-era vibes to XRP's potential explosion. Detractors are going to hate this because it flips their narrative on its head, but stick with me here because what we're seeing isn't just random hype, it's the dots connecting in real time. And it's got me fired up like that moment when you feel the bass drop before the beat hits full force. Let me paint the picture for you. We're diving deep into these under-the-radar announcements that scream institutional buy-in, breaking down how they're fueling speculation on price surges that could make your head spin. And I'll walk you through the charts without overwhelming you, just zooming out to show why this turbulence is like static on a radio before the signal clears up crystal. We'll connect the threads from regulatory green lights to whale moves and ETF madness, explaining why XRP's setup with its locked-in supply and burn mechanics positions it as the go-to for real-world payments in a world craving efficiency. Think about it. While the market's been chaotic with crashes and fear, these long-term catalysts are stacking up like dominoes ready to fall, and I'll share why that means opportunity for those paying attention. We'll also touch on how global perspectives from Middle Eastern investments to central bank pilots are weaving into this narrative, turning short-term setbacks into setups for massive gains. Oh, and if you're loving this kind of breakdown, hit that like button. It really helps spread the word. And subscribe if you want more of these insider takes that cut through the noise. Let's jump right into it because here's where it gets really interesting. First off, guys, let's talk about this bombshell that's flying under the radar, but packs a punch for networks like the XRP ledger. The Office of the Controller of the Currency just dropped a policy update confirming it's now okay for banks to hold crypto assets specifically for paying network fees. Now, at first glance, you might think, okay, that's niche, but zoom out with me. This isn't some random memo. It's a direct response to big banks asking for clarity because they're gearing up to integrate these networks into their core operations. The OC's interpretive letter explicitly states that national banks may hold cryptocurrency to cover these fees as part of permissible activities, marking a significant step toward mainstream blockchain use in banking. It's like the financial giants are finally admitting they've been eyeing blockchain for upgrades, and this green light tells us they're not just talking, they're committing. Why does this matter for XRP? Because Ripple's whole game plan from day one has been about top-down adoption, partnering with institutions to weave XRP into their payment stacks so everyday users benefit without even knowing it. This policy aligns perfectly, as banks can now hold XRP on balance sheets for exactly these purposes, reducing barriers to using the ledger for swift, low-cost transactions. Contrast that with the bottom-up fantasy a lot of crypto folks push, where everyone magically downloads wallets and disrupts Wall Street overnight. Nah, that's not how the world works. Most people stick with their Bank of America app, and if those banks plug in XRP for faster, cheaper cross-border moves, suddenly billions are using it passively. This OC nod validates that approach, showing banks are already deep in testing and need to hold assets like XRP to cover fees. It's a subtle but massive signal that the next G financial system is building around utility, not just hype. And let's critique the misinformation here. Some detractors claim this is irrelevant, but ignoring how it enables real institutional integration is like burying your head in the sand while the tide comes in. And speaking of connections that make you go, whoa, let's tie this into the geopolitical fireworks heating up. You've got Saudi Arabia stepping up with a $1 trillion investment push into the U.S., announced in talks that scream long-term strategy, especially with Trump back in the mix, emphasizing America as the crypto capital. During the White House meeting on November 18, 2025, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman pledged to increase Saudi investments from $600 billion to nearly $1 trillion, focusing on technology, AI, and emerging materials, which could include blockchain innovations. Remember that clip where the Saudi prince is laughing about ramping up from $600 billion to nearly $1 trillion in real investments across tech, AI, and emerging materials? That's not pocket change. It's sovereign wealth betting big on U.S. growth. And when you connect the dots to earlier moves, like a Saudi prince dropping $100 million into a funding round for a NASDAQ-listed firm holding XRP as a reserve asset right after Trump's visit, it starts looking like more than coincidence. Guys, think about it. Trump's been vocal about strategic reserves, including cryptos beyond Bitcoin, even named dropping XRP on Truth Social for a broader stockpile. With his administration welcoming crypto leaders into the White House, a total 180 from the cold shoulder before, this could mean XRP stepping up as a bridge for international settlements, especially with Middle Eastern oil money flowing in. Recent exposts are buzzing about this. For instance, one influencer noted the alignment of U.S. power, Saudi wealth, and XRP infrastructure as no coincidence, fueling community discussions on potential price surges. Another highlighted whale movements, possibly tied to these developments, countering FUD by emphasizing smart money positioning. It's like sound waves in a crowded room. The market noise from daily dips is just background static, but these big catalysts are the thunderclap that clears the air and drives real value. This global perspective adds depth. Saudi's push isn't isolated. It's part of a broader shift where nations seek efficient, transparent rails like XRP to handle massive capital flows, critiquing the industry's hypocrisy on transparency, where secretive projects falter while XRP's regulatory progress shines. This ties perfectly into the ETF frenzy that's got everyone buzzing, and holy smokes, the numbers are eye-watering. Just look at Franklin Templeton's spot XRP ETF launch. Analysts are predicting $150 to $250 million in demand on day one, dwarfing Canary Capital's debut, which still pulled in $58 million initially and kept scooping up millions more in XRP daily. Franklin Templeton tapped Coinbase custody for their EZXRP ETF set to launch on November 18, 2025. With experts turning bullish on the impact, Canary's already hit over $120 million in holdings, with inflows projecting them acquiring another 11 million XRP in a single day. And that's just one fund. Now multiply that with filings from Grayscale, Bitwise, and others lining up. Grayscale's updated S1 pointing to a potential launch around November 24th. These aren't retail toys, they're institutional vehicles backed by actual XRP, pulling tokens off exchanges and creating a supply squeeze. If even half these ETFs match Canary's pace, we're talking 1.3 billion XRP vanishing from the market monthly. Go full throttle and it's 2.6 billion. That's not speculation. It's math based on real volumes we've seen. And with Franklin Templeton boasting 1,500 times the assets under management of smaller players, their network of advisors, pensions, and wealth platforms means trusted money flowing in without the hassle of wallets or self-custody. This is the biggest XRP ETF wave ever, and it's set to explode prices as demand clashes with XRP's fixed 100 billion supply. Every transaction burns a tiny fee, making it deflationary over time. Unlike inflationary projects that dilute holders, exposts are lit with this. One analyst shared timelines for remaining launches, noting Grayscale's November 24th date, while another projected billion-dollar daily flows leading to supply shock within a year. Pros: massive liquidity influx counters FUD. Cons: short-term volatility as markets adjust, but long-term, it's reassurance for holders navigating uncertainty. Guys, let's be real. I've been in this space long enough to spot the hypocrisy from Bitcoin maxis who bash XRP's centralization while ignoring how their own assets' 4-year cycles are crumbling under institutional weight. Michael Saylor himself called it, "The old H-having hype is dead," because ETFs and mega finance actors like BlackRock CK are driving sustained demand, not retail. FOMO Bitcoin is not crashing like past cycles, it's stabilizing macro style, and that maturity spills over to alts like XRP, which amplifies moves. Bitcoin up 2 times. XRP could 4 times or more, especially with its utility edge critique. The max is all you want, but their blind spots on transparency are glaring. XRP's escrow locks up billions in predictable releases, countering dump fears, while secretive projects hide behind pseudonyms. This contrast shines in uncertain times, reassuring holders that XRP's built for banks' needs. 90% coverage of the 7.5 trillion daily FX market, pilots with 24 central banks. We've only heard about a handful, and speed so fast that early tests had to slow down because legacy systems couldn't keep up. Ripple Swell 2025 highlighted this with announcements like a $500 million strategic investment at a $40 billion tollless valuation led by Fortress and Citadel, emphasizing XRP's role in tokenization and RWAS. The event featured discussions on blockchain's future, including acquisitions like Palisade for custody infrastructure, underscoring Ripple's push for enterprise-grade solutions. Now, shifting to the charts, because I know you're wondering about price action amid all this, XRP's been holding key support like a champ, even as whales dumped 200 million tokens in 48 hours post-ETF hype, dragging it down 4% to around $2.17. In a broader market dip that's hit extreme fear levels not seen since Trump's Liberation Day. But here's the reassurance. This short-term chaos is classic. Sell the news after big announcements with outflows from ETPs totaling 16 million as fear grips the market. Yet, zoom out and XRP's up 89% over the past year, outperforming Bitcoin and Ethereum, breaking through $2.19 resistance with $748 billion in volume. Signaling rebound potential patterns remind me of 2013 to 2017, where long sideways chops build pressure like a coiled spring before violent breakouts. We're seeing bullish divergences, price testing supports around $2, while momentum indicators rebound, suggesting the glass floor holds, and we push toward $2.50 to $2.60 safety against Bitcoin. XRP's making upside moves, decoupling in a good way. If that continues, even Bitcoin dips won't drag XRP down. It's like market waves. The crashes are the troughs, but institutional inflows are the tide. Lifting all boats, and XRP's deflationary burns plus escrow mean less supply chasing, more demand long-term. Recent whale alerts show mixed movements. Massive inflows like 76 million XRP into one wallet, but outflows like 57 million from another, indicating repositioning rather than pure selling pressure. This smart money behavior addresses panic points. Whales aren't fleeing. They're strategizing for the boom. Tying back to that thumbnail vibe, the wow of a secret announcement, the urgency of Trump-Saudi links, the sheer scale of the biggest ETF launches, it's all symbolic of scarcity exploding into abundance. That exploding rocket, it's XRP's price potential as ETFs lock up billions, mirroring its fixed supply, turning scarcity into a superpower. The eye emojis for shock. That's the reaction to realizing how Ripple's $500 million funding from Citadel and Fortress at a $40 billion valuation. Post-swell 2025 isn't just cash, it's validation from Wall Street. Heavyweights betting on XRP's role in tokenization and RWA's well-featured lineups with BlackRock's K-types and White House reps hinting at institutional adoption that counters FUD like a boss, including talks on XRP ETF prospects and partnerships. Guys, think about the psychological side. In volatile times, smart money whales might sell short-term, but they're positioning for the boom. Big buys like $2.5 million chunks show institutions stepping in via ETFs for exposure without the hassle. And let's address common pain points like misinformation. Maxis overlook how XRP's transparency in escrow and burns builds trust, while their favorites face similar scrutiny. This empowers us as a community, turning despair from dips into excitement for what's next. And let's not forget the global angle. Ripple's has piloted CBDCs in dozens of spots covering major markets while pushing for clarity, like the Clarity Act that could cap company holdings at 20%, potentially forcing strategic deals where Ripple gifts escrow XRP to the US for adoption. Imagine XRP as the settlement rail for US payments, backed by Trump's pro-crypto push. It's not what-if land. It's logical given Ripple's tech stack ready for Fed integration. Critiquing industry norms, this transparency beats secretive dumps, empowering communities over Maxis's echo chambers. If you're feeling the panic from recent crashes, remember this is emotional relief. History shows rebounds follow fear. And with regulation potentially marking up before Thanksgiving, trust and investment flood in. X posts echo this sentiment. One user theorized Saudi trillions supercharging XRP, while another highlighted whale accumulations signaling adoption. Here's a personal story to drive it home. Back when I first got into crypto, I watched similar setups play out. Assets dismissed as centralized, suddenly exploding on utility news. XRP feels the same. The connections from OC policy to Saudi investments to ETFs aren't isolated. There are web positioning holders ahead. Weave in psychological insights. Fear sells, but smart money buys dips. Observing behaviors like whales rotating to custody amid ETF launches. This adds depth for curious viewers. Simplifying jargon through storytelling, like comparing burns to a self-tightening belt on supply. Midway through, if this is hitting home and you're nodding along, drop a comment with your take on how Saudi trillions could supercharge XRP. Love hearing your theories. It builds that community vibe where we all level up together. And hey, sharing this video with a fellow enthusiast, that's how we spread the empowerment, turning despair into excitement, one connection at a time. Rhetorical question. What if these dots lead to XRP becoming the standard for global settlements? It's absolutely phenomenal to consider. Expanding on historical parallels, recall 2017's bull run. XRP surged over 36,000%. On partnership announcements, today's setup mirrors that with amplified institutional backing. Short-term chaos, like the recent 4% dip, it's noise. Long-term positives dominate. From Swell's acquisition news to bipartisan regulatory support, potentially passing pre-thanks reassurance, this positions you ahead, validating edges in competitive fields. Optimistically, the hype builds. ETFs could trigger paradigm shifts with predictions of XRP worth more than Tron by 2030 based on institutional credibility. Wrapping this up on a visionary note, guys, picture the transformation ahead. A world where XRP's utility isn't just talk, but the backbone of trillions in daily flows, where regulatory progress and institutional adoption make the uncertain times feel like setup for the greatest comeback story in crypto. It's inevitable, like the internet's adoption through gateways rather than everyone coding from scratch. XRP's the Google of payments, making it seamless. That thumbnail's exploding price. It's the metaphor for what's coming, a boom that leaves holders inspired, motivated, and ahead of the curve. Stay engaged, keep connecting those dots, and let's ride this wave together. What do you think? Is this the turning point? Let me know below.